the main thing for me in the US, as far as kind of MLS and USL, is kind of the USL is always seen as a minor league, and people will just kind of turn their nose up at that a little bit. Um, Definitely the level I think is good enough. I'd probably compare USL to probably around kind of League One in the UK, League One, League Two kind of level. And I mean, you've seen kind of plenty of players kind of make the step up to MLS or even go back to the UK. I mean, we had a guy at San Diego Loyal last season, Kai Vassell, who actually moved back to the UK. Now is playing for Kilmarnock in the Scottish Premiership. And again, the level of play, to be honest, isn't too dissimilar. But again, it's a whole kind of the idea of minor league versus kind of major league. And I think that's kind of the main thing that's kind of playing out in the kind of San Diego right now, as far as a lot more fans are kind of popping up out of the woodworks who wouldn't go watch San Diego Loyal because they aren't a major league team. But now MLS is here, they're all for it, and they're kind of looking forward to watching soccer here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, episode 56 of Box to Box. Man, recording on a Monday. Got a very special guest. I'll tee him up with a great intro in just 1 second. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Jose Tejas. I'm the primary host of Box to Box, where we tell fan stories, primarily fan stories of usually stateside soccer fans, those who want to see the beautiful game grow here in North America. And today I am joined by none other than Max Bristow. He is a Twitch streamer, FIFA content. He's a massive San Diego Loyal fan, a massive USL fan. And guys, he's a stateside Englishman, right? He's someone that's traveled, adopted the game as we know it here on this part of the world. And I can't believe he's here. Excited to have him on. Max, how are you, my man?
I'm doing great. I said it's a good day to be a soccer fan in America, and I think the main thing now is that I call it soccer more than football, honestly, and that's one of the main things I think, just being in the US for so long now.
Does it feel weird?
To be honest, no. I think I've been over here long enough now that I think whenever I go back home, I have to kind of catch myself not saying soccer all the time. But to be honest, for me, kind of saying soccer now, it doesn't feel weird. Although I will say the first couple of years in the US didn't quite feel right, you know.
It has to grow on you for sure. And I'll say this too, man. I know for me, I was kind of in the same boat when I was a kid. You know, my family's generationally are generally football fans, right? As most of the world knows it. And I didn't even know it was called soccer till I was 9 or 10 years old. And so I feel like, you know, that adjustment you have to make, especially for those who are traveling from abroad and wanting to experience the game here when the World Cup comes in 2026. I imagine we're going to get quite a bit of that, but we will see. Anyway, man, for today, I'm glad to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to get right into it, right? Let's waste no more time. I think the audience already knows the question I'm going to ask. I ask it to every single guest. Max, who are you today?
I think primarily, I guess a soccer content creator now in general. I mean, I've slowly moved over from FIFA to this kind of soccer in general, but kind of for me, growing up, always playing the game, kind of being a former college athlete as well, coming over here to play soccer in general. But I think just a soccer content creator, wanting to kind of, I guess, grow the game as a whole, kind of help grow the, I guess, if I can, San Diego Loyal kind of name, get it out there. But yeah, just I guess always trying to bet myself, help grow the game, and just get the word out there.
Yeah, man, you're doing a good job. I think that there's, you know, when it comes to these creators who are, whether they're based here or abroad, it still amazes me every single time I meet an MLS fan or a USL fan that's based in another part of the world, right? This game is growing here in North America. It's only going to be a matter of time before it's a contender amongst the best. But in these early days, right, creators like yourself, this new wave of independent content creation and media, it's so necessary to grow in this game, man. And that's why you're here. We're going to help tell some of that story today. So let's jump in. You know, how we typically kind of run things here from Box to Box. We start in the beginning, right? Your earliest memories of soccer, earliest memories of the beautiful game. You know, you come from another part of the world. I'm personally curious, as I imagine other audience members are, when it comes to cultural differences and things like that. But we'll jump into all of it. Let's start in the very beginning. Earliest memories of soccer. How did it all kind of start for you? Who were you supporting? Was your family kind of driving the sport home with you? Was it friends? Who were some of those biggest influences in the earliest days?
So for me, probably going back to kind of the very start, I think this comes from kind of playing on the playground, whether it be like a lunchtime, break time, or the ball's always out. Everyone's playing football, soccer, every time you can, honestly. You know, I know kind of in the US, I feel like people start with soccer at a very young age. Especially after coaching out here as well. I mean, I've coached kind of 2, 3, 4-year-olds, and maybe that plays a part in people dropping the game earlier because they play it so early.
Hey guys, really quick, before you get to the video, do me one quick favor. like the video down below if you haven't already done so. Subscribe to the channel. GOLZtv is on this mission of growing the beautiful game in North America. Whether you call it soccer, footy, football, doesn't really matter. We want to see the game grow in the States, in broader North America. Can't do it without your help. All right. So if you support that mission alone, subscribe to the channel. Plenty of stories being told by fans, content creators, everyone in between. Again, just like the video down below, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy.
But for me, I didn't start playing for a team until I was about 8, 9 years old. But really come from friends. My family weren't really too involved with soccer to begin with. And then really just kind of, I guess, whenever I get involved with something, I don't like to be average at it. So I was trying to get better. I know when I first started playing soccer, I was horrific. Just kind of the old toe poking the ball, going in for tackles, kind of just kicking people in the shins. But just a case of kind of getting falling in love with it. I think just to kind of seeing yourself grow and get better or something. But yeah, just kind of fell in love with the whole game. And I think just in the UK and England in general, everyone loves soccer, everyone loves football, and I mean it's a primary sport. Whereas obviously in the US now they kind of compete with other sports. Kids kind of it's tough for them to play more than one sport. And I know for myself growing up, I pretty much played every single sport that you can kind of think of. But obviously, I think just the fact that soccer is so big as kind of just a whole lifestyle thing in the UK, really is the main thing there. But I really just, again, for me growing up, I mean, primarily a Man United and Exeter City fan. The Exeter City jersey is one to my, I think it's my right shoulder here. And then on my left one here, I've got Rooney doing a bicycle kick versus Man City. But for me, Wayne Rooney is my kind of idol growing up. And I think I kind of, I tried to almost copy my game to his a little bit, just kind of maybe not so skillful, but just more so kind of passion, aggression, more so I guess kind of that street style of kind of playing, just getting stuck in, and I guess I think if people ask me what kind of player I am, I'm a completely different person on the soccer field as far as kind of the aggression comes out and kind of the real me. I think the funny story was when I met my wife in college too. She's kind of, oh, some like nice English guy, and then she saw me play soccer. She was like, "Who is this guy? He's completely different."
Guy's a beast.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, but yeah, growing up, I mean, just kind of fall in love with the game there, and then just kind of, I guess, you get to a point where you kind of become pretty good at the game.
Yeah.
Kind of have trials and whatnot at big teams, and then I think initially led to me coming out to US a bit further down the line as well.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. And it's interesting you mentioned how, you came up as a player, who you modeled some of your game after. And I can only imagine, right? Environment dictates so much, I think, of what players, who they want to become or how they want to mold some of their style after. At the time, right? Culturally, is this, again, I can only imagine what it's like to grow up in the UK and try to absorb as much as you can of what's around you. Culturally speaking, was your family a massive factor in you adopting all the family that you had around the game? Was was it always on, or was it just a byproduct of you living in a part of the world where you can't really get away from it, right?
I think it's more so the byproduct of everything else going on around it. I mean, people, if they kind of speak about sports, I mean, especially in the US, as far as in a workplace or with kind of friends, it's primarily not about soccer as far as sports go. I mean, you've got kind of the American football, everyone kind of speaks about whether you want to do like the fantasy football in the US and things like that. But like soccer isn't the main kind of talking point. But in the UK, I mean, every day you go to school, you've got people speaking about soccer. You kind of, well, how did you watch the game last night? Or watch the game on the weekend? And that's what it's really about. I mean, if you don't like soccer in the UK, it's a tough place to grow up, honestly. Obviously, I know there's quite a lot of rugby fans here and there, but yeah, soccer is the main thing first and foremost, and you can't get around it.
Yeah, that's what I figured, right? I think I feel like it would have to be everywhere. Right now in my mind, it's almost, I don't want to say impossible, but just very difficult to imagine. It's another type of sports fan that exists over there, just because that's all that I feel like I hear. All of the noise is, and it's not all Premier League, but it's just all soccer or all football, right? All the time. And so, I think, when we think about how to best grow this game here on this side of the world, kind of shedding light on some of those experiences culturally and some of the differences between the two continents, the two countries. I'm always personally curious. I imagine other members of our audience are as well. So you mentioned before, at some point migrating over to the US, but before you got to that point, what was the motivation to doing so? right? Because I do see quite a few players, right? I played college soccer myself. I've seen, I've had teammates who've migrated from other parts of the world, because at the end of the day, university ball or college ball just really isn't a thing in other parts of the world. You kind of have to pick one over the other. Was it that motivation, or was there something else kind of beneath the surface that motivated you to think about migrating over to the US?
I think the first thing that I knew a guy in college or high school in England that came out to the US, and I was at a point where it was a case of if you're playing non-league football, non-league soccer in the UK, you can still earn a good money and good wage, but kind of the education and kind of side of things are kind of pushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, really, I think the main thing really is kind of being able to go to university and not have to kind of pay too much and come out of university debt free is pretty much the main thing for me. I mean, if you go to university in the UK, you don't go there for a sport, you don't go there on a scholarship. Everyone pays pretty much a flat fee. Everyone comes out of loans and debt. Um, that was the main thing, and kind of wanting to experience something different. I mean, most people in the UK growing up will always want to go to America, love kind of I guess not the American dream as such. Was always kind of a nice, cool thing to do. And I think for me, it was a case of I had almost missed my chance to kind of, I guess, make it in the UK. But definitely to come out to the US, basically come out of no debt of university and kind of play soccer at a good level, and have lots of new experiences was kind of the main factors for me.
I love that, man. And look, I think it's actually really refreshing to hear that at the end of the day, you just had this motivation, this ambition to get new experiences and experience something that you just really weren't able to culturally in the UK. I'm curious for your first thoughts, right? Your first reactions to being here. Let's say for the first few months, whatever the case may be, first 6 months, if you will. When you first got a look at soccer on this part of the world, how, and feel free to be, again, if you want to be brutally honest, however you want to go about it, but just some of the differences either in the level of play or just even how fans talked about the game. Did you notice things or notice differences right away?
The level of play, I think, was higher than I thought it was going to be, and I think what helped, I think, had a lot of guys from the UK and kind of all over the world at my college as well, so that helped as well. Definitely kind of settle in. Um, Definitely the fact that I went to a school in pretty much the middle of nowhere in Kentucky did play a part as well. But I think just kind of the accessibility to watching the game outside of colleges was very tough at that time, especially I know in Kentucky now there's kind of they're growing the game there too. But you can't really go to watch a professional level game very easily wherever you go. I mean, even in college, it was obviously that's the level, and you can kind of go watch college games. But to be honest, if you're not kind of related to anyone on the college team, or you kind of haven't gone to that college, you won't really go and watch college games here and there. Um, I think maybe some of the terminology here and there and kind of the way things are set up shocked me a little bit. I think one of my first training sessions over here, one of our coach said, "Hey, can you go shag some balls?" And obviously in the US, that just means go collect some soccer balls.
Yep.
In the UK, that means a completely different thing. So when I heard that, I was like, "Excuse me, what are we meant to be doing here?" But yeah, just little things here and there. I mean, another nice phrase that I picked up was, I think my goalkeeper freshman year, "balls to the wall." Nice little American phrase there as well. So definitely some cool phrases picked up here and there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I never even thought about that, but I use those phrases all the time, right? And I think back to my high school days. Yeah, go shack some balls. That was, and honestly, who liked doing that at the end of the day, right? Like, oh yeah, let me go run, get my cardio in, go chase the balls that these forwards are missing, and obviously in the UK that terminology means something completely different. But at the end of the day, yeah, I never really thought about, I guess, those cultural differences and how normalized they are here, right? But it's actually honestly great to hear that I guess the drop off in terms of level of play wasn't so, wide, right? It didn't feel like a massive drop off. The level of play was actually pretty decent, and I imagine this is probably the case across the board, right? For all sorts of leagues, whether they're professional or university driven here in the states, is that the level has only gone up, and I expect between now and the 2026 World Cup, we're going to continue to see the level rise, and hopefully more of the pyramid just start to get the visibility and the awareness that it deserves. Because I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of good soccer that's going on this side of the world that really has yet to capture the attention of fans all over the country. So we'll definitely see. But that's pretty cool to hear. So you mentioned Kentucky. At what point did you work your way from that side of the country over to the West Coast where you are now?
So basically, I went to college at a school called St. Catherine College for my first 2 years. Um, Funnily enough, that school shut down after 2 years. So I had to find a new college. That was a bit of a shock for me. So I
Okay.
moved over to a new college, also in Kentucky, called Midway University. Um, Once I graduated, then I moved up to upstate New York and I coached soccer for about 2.5, 3 years. Coached for a club and in high school up there as well. Um, and then after that, I got fed up of the New York winters and the kind of half the year being cold and kind of 3 foot snow here and there. So moved out to San Diego for about a year and a half ago now, and yeah, haven't looked back since.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, in all honesty, I haven't heard very many good things about the winters in upstate. Let's just call it Northeast. I don't think it's just New York. I think it's that whole Northeast corner. They're just like brutal. So yeah, I don't fault you at all for making your way over to the West Coast. I did that myself not too long ago. And so San Diego, you're there. You've been there now for a year and a half. Now that you've gotten a little more settled, how does the soccer compare on the West Coast versus what you were seeing over on the East side?
It's definitely, I guess, for me, a lot different because I'm so close to a professional soccer team here in San Diego. I'll be
Mhm.
honest, living in New York, I didn't get to watch any professional games up there. Obviously, I know down in the city, you've got a few teams down there, although it's kind of a 3 hour drive. And I mean, in the US terms, 3 hours is somewhat of a short trip. In the UK, 3 hours is about half the country. So um, it does make a change there. And I think definitely with the away days in the US, it's very tough for fans in making those trips, especially midweek.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously out here now, I mean, we've got San Diego Loyal here. You've got San Diego Wave, the women's team. We've got the new MLS team coming in 2025. There's an indoor team here as well, the San Diego Sockers, who are, again, well, I mean, I guess known all over the US as far as being one of the best indoor teams here too.
Yep.
And that's probably another thing for me is the fact that indoor soccer has the ability to be professional in the US as well. But even then, I mean, go up from here, you've got Orange County, you've got both the LA teams. I mean, soccer's everywhere on the West Coast. Um, and I know obviously a lot of this is kind of recent news and kind of new teams popping up here and there. But just the ability to watch games kind of every single weekend. Maybe my wife doesn't love that. But I mean, the way more soccer is kind of being played here. I mean, even going back this past weekend with the new stadium here in San Diego, the Snapdragon Stadium. I think Mexico played against Cameroon here this past weekend. There's got
Yep.
some Gold Cup games here as well. And then even going into the summer, I know we've got Wrexham are playing Man United here as well. And then San Diego Loyal also playing against Borussia Dortmund that same week as well. So definitely way more easy to watch games here. A lot more teams to support and to go and see. And yeah, cannot complain about that.
Yeah, I can't complain about the fact that it's also probably very accessible at the end of the day, right? And that's another thing where, in some major markets here in this country, being able to find matches to attend that, I mean, I can only imagine what it costs to go to an LAFC match, right? Or, to El Tráfico when they play the Galaxy. I think the best part about supporting your local club, regardless of where they are in the pyramid, is that it's highly accessible. They need fans to get out there. They're not putting very many financial barriers in your way. It's just a matter of being out there, being supportive. So it's great to hear that there's so much to really kind of hang your hat on when it comes to soccer in San Diego. And speaking of San Diego, just in general, right? I think very recently, major announcement, right? The expansion into MLS, what that's going to do for the city, for the SoCal region. And SoCal's always just historically been this massive soccer hub. I remember going to Surf Cup out there as a young player. Surf Cup's still just a massive showcase when it comes to the youth soccer scene. But there's all, like you mentioned, right? All these matches in the summer. There's going to be a ton between now and the World Cup getting here. But with the MLS team set to, I believe it's 2025, correct?
Yeah, 2025.
So with that expansion, I mean, I don't know, is there a little more of a buzz right now going on in San Diego? What was that week of the announcement like?
The weekly, I mean, the whole MLS of San Diego has been kind of in the background the past couple of years. I know it's between, I think it was Las Vegas and San Diego as far as the next expansion team. I think for me, primarily as a San Diego Loyal fan, it wasn't kind of, there was a point where we kind of thought that they may kind of buy out San Diego Loyal and bring them into the MLS. And I think that's kind of what we were all hoping for. Um, when we found out that wasn't the case, I think kind of people do get worried. I mean, you kind of look at how it's been in other kind of areas where there's been a USL team and an MLS team's come in and kind of taken over that team or kind of moved into their market.
Yeah.
And it never really has turned out well for the team that's already there. I mean, you could go look at kind of Charlotte right now. Obviously, their MLS team is thriving, doing very well. But their USL team now, the Charlotte Independents, I think they dropped down the league into the USL League One. They don't get many fans there at all. I mean, you've got Miami or the Miami FC, who obviously don't draw many fans, obviously into Miami there as well. And even kind of in kind of Austin and also in St. Louis too. It's never turned out well for the USL team, which I think is worrying at times for the fans of San Diego Loyal. But also for me, I think at times too, it's also going to create a lot more soccer fans in general, which is only good for the area. And I do think that if the MLS team grows and does well, it should only do kind of good things for both sides of the kind of both teams there. But again, it's a case of you don't know what's going to happen. It's all speculation. And you can really only go off of what the history is kind of shown, which isn't necessarily good showing. But also San Diego is kind of a massive hotbed for soccer, obviously being so close to the Mexican border as well. And I know a lot of fans, especially here, Mexican fans, go under TJ, watch Tijuana play. So if there's a bigger team here, hopefully they'll kind of stay north of the border, watch more games here, and hopefully that kind of flows over into San Diego Loyal as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. I think the USL obviously hasn't benefited that much from another team in the same market coming into town and almost taking those fans, right? And bringing them over to what they all consider to be a higher level of play, even if they never really watched that USL scene before. So yeah, from that perspective, it is slightly disheartening. But I do think that SoCal does have a different type of fan, and probably just more of them in pure volume. So it'll be interesting to see how this all scales between now and when the team officially makes its debut. When you think about kind of what everything is like right now in San Diego, what they're building towards, I know the locals, from what I've heard, right, the supporters group for the San Diego Loyal are and actually a pretty adamant group, very avid fan base down there. Do you think with that supporters group and honestly year over year have kind of grown a decent bit? Do you think that they're going to be kind of that pivotal group when you think about trying to keep fans at the Loyal matches and keep the buzz around the San Diego Loyal going?
Yeah, I mean they're primary. I mean they're the. Well, I'm going to be biased here, but probably the best fans in the league as far as kind of keeping the noise going all game. Kind of everyone that kind of is involved with the supporters group. I mean, for me coming into it as well, obviously they're very welcoming, and it's just kind of you don't quite realize what goes on behind the scenes as far as the supporters group, kind of everything as far as in the community, kind of events here and there, volunteering and whatnot. But just so much goes on in the community, which isn't just kind of going to basically being a case of go and watch them play on the weekend and that's it. So much goes on behind the scenes as far as kind of the committee, kind of like I said, volunteering here and there, just kind of getting out in the community and kind of this. And there's a lot of people in there who, again, before the Sunday Loyal came in, didn't like soccer, didn't watch soccer, and even people recently too have just kind of been a case of, hey, I've heard it's a good time, I'll come and watch, and kind of fell in love with it. And I think it's really a case of San Diego Loyal trying to find their niche as far as, I mean, they're not going to be able to produce or be able to kind of get people in as far as saying, hey, we're the kind of premier men's soccer team in San Diego. When the MLS team comes in, they won't be. But again, it's kind of I wouldn't say grassroots level, but I guess you kind of get the more interaction with kind of the fan base, the players in general. I mean, even myself kind of walking around the stadium, getting to speak to the president of the club, the owner of the club. Um, it wouldn't really happen at an MLS team. You don't kind of, I guess, feel that kind of attachment to the team itself.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the formula, in all honesty, for staying relevant is being as closely connected and as accessible to the fans as you possibly can. Right. Any way that, of course, being welcoming is one thing. But I even think to the local supporters group here for FC Dallas, for example, right, El Matador, and how much they try to be open, be welcoming, be accessible. And a lot of that gets lost in translation and by some supporters groups almost forgotten, right? At times you do hear stories about gatekeeping and things like that. I think at the end of the day, we should be welcoming every new soccer fan with open arms, whether they've been a part of the beautiful game or a part of the community for years on end, or if they started literally today. And it sounds like, based on how you kind of broke it down, that the locals, I'm sorry, are doing just that for the Loyals, and hopefully that continues to carry on, man. I think that that supporters group is probably going to be massive for keeping the team itself as relevant as humanly possible. So when you just to kind of pivot over to a slightly new topic on the loyal front, um, when you came over to San Diego, right? Started Did you start creating content for the loyal automatically? I know that you have or you're part of a show, right? Bums Breakdown and
Yeah,
um,
we do a kind of a, I guess, a more of a midweek show, like a preview for the upcoming game, Good Bums Breakdown. And then after every home game, we do kind of a locals last call, where we kind of just break down the matches as past.
yeah. How did these these shows and all this content that you're doing? I know you've been doing Twitch content right now for FIFA for quite some time. You're slowly transitioning over to IRL soccer content. But where did this all come from? Did the Loyals not really have these types of shows and segments when you moved over? Were you filling a need in the market? How did that all come to fruition?
Initially I came over or came to San Diego on vacation, probably about 3 years ago now, maybe 2 years ago, around this time. Watched the game, kind of fell in love with the team then, and kind of knew that we were going to move to San Diego. The last season, more so a case of just kind of getting involved with the fans, being a part of it, and I didn't really think about creating content around the San Diego Loyal then. This past off season, I guess, kind of wanted to get back into watching. I mean, obviously, watching the soccer all the time, but getting more involved with it, more involved with the USL in general. I do think maybe for the USL teams, there isn't really almost a dedicated kind of I wouldn't say support, but kind of content with each team. There was obviously some guys here in San Diego do some great content with soccer in general, but they're more so kind of covering every team within San Diego and kind of just soccer in general. But just kind of just breaking, I guess, the kind of pre-match stuff down a bit more, especially after the game, but just kind of creating my own stuff for the team. And again, it helps me kind of getting more involved with the USL and kind of finding out more stuff. Again, every single week we kind of go through, watch the upcoming opposition's game, kind of their key players, how they play, and just kind of watching more soccer in general. Just kind of, I guess, helps grow my knowledge, but just kind of I guess, my love for the game out here.
Yeah, man. And you can tell, right, when you kind of tune into one of those episodes, or you guys have a special guest on. Like, I think the most recent episode that I tuned into was when you guys had was it John Morrissey, USL
John
Tactics?
Morrissey from Duracell Tactics, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
John is a great. I mean, he pretty much knows everything going on in the USL. He'll kind of watch every game, break them down, and honestly, he's a great resource for anyone kind of wanting to get into the USL.
yeah, it's crazy. When I watch his breakdowns, I mean, he if you wanted to bring up a random topic from last season, right? A random match where you wanted some deeper insights on how a team was set up or why they chose the formation they chose for that match. I mean, he has almost all of that knowledge offhand, and it's kind of crazy. I think what he's doing for the USL. I'm sure the league is extremely appreciative of all the content he puts out there. But I don't know. Are there other guests like that you guys are bringing onto the show that are helping to kind of promote the game, not just in San Diego, but maybe across the USL as a whole?
I think as the USL as a whole, it's slowly getting there. I know kind of each team probably has their own kind of podcast or show here and there, but maybe not so more on the tactical side of things and kind of breaking down games. Again, I've not really gone ahead and kind of done too much research in other teams as far as kind of what I guess their kind of supporters groups are putting out as far as content goes. And I already know beforehand, kind of the locals here had their own kind of weekly show, but it's more so a case of more so the supporters group again, obviously speaking about the team and whatnot. But just having that ability to guess kind of talk more kind of tactics, formations, kind of breaking down teams a little bit more was kind of, I guess, the hole that I found,
Yeah.
which is why I love speaking about it so much. And I do think that no doubt the USL is growing, but definitely at kind of the lower you go down in the kind of the USL, well, not the USL, but the USA kind of soccer pyramid, the less and less you do see. We're just kind of, I guess, putting more stuff out there, kind of filling that void a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, we need more creators like yourself. We do. At the end of the day, we need to have deeper access that comes from the fans directly, right? I love this wave of, I think, what's everybody calling it? New media now, where they're being independent content creators are being compared content wise, the quality of the content to legacy media, right? And in my opinion, and this is a strong opinion, I think eventually, maybe as we get closer to the World Cup, fans, especially I don't know if there's a generation past Gen Z. Is it Gen Alpha? I can't remember exactly what it's
I've
called,
got no
but
idea.
but I think as new generations of fans come into this game and discover it in any form or fashion, I think they're going to want to hear from fans, actual fans, not, pundits who are trying to be as impartial as they possibly can, toe the line, not go hard one way or the other, and provide tactical analysis. I think those things are great, but to supplement all of that content, you need a deep, passionate take from someone who has ties to the club. Maybe they've been supporting for a long time, or have access to personnel on the inside, whatever it may be. But I do think that there is a place for this wave of new media and independent content creators. And the only way that this sport really grows to its potential is if we get more of this, more folks like yourself, and like you mentioned, across the entire soccer pyramid. And I think the same thing is probably true about the level of play in the ecosystem itself. I mean, do you have, you being a USL fan? I'm always curious. MLS fans kind of feel one way about this because they've only known the closed off franchise structure that we've had for years on end. And there's so many fans who didn't even know that promotion relegation was a thing, right? Until they discovered soccer or football in other parts of the world, right? And they see how much insanity that really kind of introduces to the sport. Do you believe that this is what American soccer needs to grow to that next level, or to even just gain adoption as a mainstream sport in this country?
It's tough, and I think with kind of the whole promotion relegation, that's never going to go away in the US as far as with the kind of with the leagues and the teams, and it's tough. And I don't think promotion and relegation is the kind of savior of kind of US soccer as a whole. I mean, people nowadays are kind of speaking about Wrexham and obviously how it's going on TV, and it's kind of gotten a lot more people involved with soccer as a whole in the US. Which is crazy to think that obviously Wrexham are they were a non-league team in the UK. Now they're back into League Two, but again, everyone's got the local team they can go out and watch. The main thing for me in the US, as far as kind of MLS and USL, is kind of the USL is always seen as a minor league, and people will just kind of turn their nose up at that a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely, the level I think is good enough. I'd probably compare USL to probably around kind of League One in the UK, League One, League Two kind of level. And I mean, you've seen kind of plenty of players kind of make the step up to MLS or even go back to the UK. I mean, we had a guy at San Diego Low last season, Kyle Vassell, who actually moved back to the UK. Now is playing for Kilmarnock in the Scottish Premiership. And again, the level of play, to be honest, isn't too dissimilar. But again, it's a whole kind of the idea of minor league versus kind of major league. And I think that's kind of the main thing that's kind of playing out in the kind of San Diego right now, as far as a lot more fans are kind of popping up out of the woodworks who wouldn't go watch San Diego Loy because they aren't a major league team. But now MLS is here. They're all for it, and they're kind of looking forward to watching soccer here. But it's just a case of kind of, I guess, not really caring too much about the level and just going out to support your local team and getting involved with it. I mean, for myself, I've kind of been a fan of a smaller team in the UK. I'm not against supporting like kind of your local team and kind of, I guess, lower attending games. But I think really it's a case of, I think people need to experience it first and foremost to kind of get a feel for it. But I do get the kind of toughness it is to kind of, I guess, convert fans from, again, being like even an NBA fan or NFL fan or even kind of hockey, baseball. There's so many kind of sports and teams vying for everyone's attention. It's hard to kind of break into that market sometimes. I mean, luckily in San Diego, we've really only got the Padres right now to compete for that as far as other sports here. But just in general, people, I guess, yeah, like I said, do turn a nose up at kind of USL and anything that isn't kind of the top tier in the US.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? And I'm glad you mentioned the attention that sports really get here, because unlike other countries, right? You think about, I don't know, I always go back to my roots with Mexico, or even like a South American country like Argentina, for example, right? There's the attention for the average soccer or footballing fan. The attention battle is minimal in comparison to the US, right? When you're at the end of summer, early fall, sports are at their absolute height here, right? September, October, right? NFL's in full swing, college American football's in full swing, NBA is about to start back up, NHL is not far away, and then you have soccer coming to coming down, right, from MLS in terms of going into playoffs and kind of in that home stretch. But it's just a really interesting time. Maybe that, again, that's probably why the league is set up and scheduled the way that it is, because I think if we were competing against other major American sports, it'd be very, very difficult. But from my perspective, I do think the way around that is some form or fashion, having I don't know if it needs to be a hybrid model because of franchising and how owners have bought their way into MLS and how they're probably never going to approve a system that diminishes the investment that they made into this league. But I do think that there needs, I don't know if it's like an MLS 1 and an MLS 2 or something along those lines, restructuring the pyramid altogether. Like there needs to be a way for teams in the middle and in the lower end, right? The USL teams to work their way into relevancy from the average fan's perspective by getting results, purely by getting results. If they can do that, there should be some tangible reward that brings more awareness from the casual soccer fan. I don't know. Do you think, just realistically, point blank, do you think we're ever going to see that, or are we just kind of, I don't want to say doomed to deal with franchising, right? But is this just from your perspective going to be how it is?
I think the USL is the closest league to getting promotion and relegation. I mean, right now you've got the USL Championship, League One, League Two. Right now, League Two is more so kind of like the college league in the summer. League One is professional, and I do think that there will be some kind of promotion relegation at some point. It's tough for the USL, I think, to necessarily compete with the MLS. You can't really. I mean, you look at the MLS right now, San Diego, the new owner there, I think spent what 500 million to get
Yeah.
a team there, and it's that price is only going to go up and up and up. But in the USL, I think a lot more teams kind of, I guess, fairly matched along the board. There isn't kind of, I guess, there is money being chucked about there, but I think a lot more kind of the budgets are a lot closer there than maybe in the MLS. But I don't know. I think is promotion relegation in the USL going to revolutionize soccer in the US? No. But I do think the fact that if more cities and more areas have teams to go and watch, it will help it slowly. I mean, you look at the women's side of the game now, I think even the USL now have recently launched a new women's league, which is going to be on par with the NWSL. So they're going to be competing with them for kind of that level one tier soccer in the US. And I'm interested to see how that's going to grow. The fact that they decided to go with kind of that tier one, division one soccer to again compete with a major league like the NWSL. So we'll see there. Um, it's tough. I mean, you've got the best USL teams will slowly kind of get poached by the MLS. You've got kind of Cincinnati who are getting like 30,000 in the USL, and they're kind of getting too many fans to kind of play in that league. So MLS, or I can't remember the kind of story behind them going to the MLS. But I think it will get there. MLS, I don't believe will ever get promotion and relegation, at least with the amount that the owners are putting into the game. You can't turn around and say to an owner who just spent 500 million on a team, hey, by the way, next season you might be playing against teams who haven't spent any money on it. It just isn't fair. And I also don't think the MLS want teams from the USL in their league at times too. I mean, the way that Don Garber's spoken about the even the US Open Cup this year. US Open Cup, as far as watching it, most of the games are on YouTube, on Bleacher Report, or kind of people are getting their own fans or their own teams to post it on YouTube. But again, I think Don Garber came out and said that, hey, I don't really care about the US Open Cup. I don't want to put money into it. The kind of play from these USL teams isn't as good as the MLS, so I don't want people seeing this product. And I guess it just kind of shows the divide between the two leagues. And the fact is, there's no kind of one kind of pyramid all the way down through to kind of help organize that. It's kind of, you've got the MLS, you've got the USL, but they're never going to, there's no need for them ever to kind of, I guess, work together really.
Yeah, but I feel like that's changing, right? I mean, especially after what the Republic did, this past year or year, I can't remember, it was 2 years ago or last season. I think, seeing USL teams or lower level teams in the pyramid make these runs in Open Cup. I personally believe, I think many fans think this as well, that US Open Cup is the one true representation of what soccer should be like in this country. That there should be some way for the smallest dog in that pyramid to work their way all the way up, right? If possible, that's the dream, right? You talked about Wrexham before. It's why those owners got involved to begin with, because theoretically, it's possible. I think that, I don't know, keeping the Open Cup. If we never see promotion relegation, I would love to see the Open Cup get more love, right? I would love to see certain matches actually be made available to the public. How many matches have we missed out on even this season because nobody was streaming them, right? Nobody was actually actively streaming them on, whether it was Bleacher Report, on YouTube, or anywhere else. There was no platform that was streaming the game. I think that actually happened to a Republic match this season, and so I don't know. I think that all in all, that's just one example, but I do believe it's the one true competition that enables or embodies the spirit of what soccer should be. So all in all, we'll kind of see how promotion relegation pans out. I know so many fans are pushing for it because they just see they see the Premier League, they see Everton secure, their place in the Premier League next season, the fans storming the field. And they see Leeds United fans, completely mudded, right? Completely just going through it because they were relegated. And that level of emotion that's tied to those results, I think, very few things in the sport bring that level of emotion to the table, right? So for the fans, they only see it one way. But I think that if you're looking at it from a business standpoint and the league surviving long term, we got to find a way to make it worthwhile for the MLS owners if we're ever going to entertain them.
That's honestly the main difference. What you said there, the fact it's a business. That's the main thing first and foremost. I mean, the money involved with the US soccer, people, the amount owners are paying here and there. They're not going to want to drop down a league unless there is some kind. I guess at least in England, you've got the parachute payments that teams do get when they get relegated. But it's so tough out here. I mean, the fact with the playoffs too, even with the MLS now introducing the kind of the best of three in the
So
first
weird, man.
round, which is a strange one. I didn't think that was ever going to happen, but it has now. But then, even with the playoffs here, I mean, you've got teams that kind of can go through, can kind of finish 7th, 8th in the playoffs, and then go on to do well and win it. Which, again, on one hand, you're like, well, that's good, an underdog can go on the way through. But then you've got a team who maybe second in the league, again, has played well all season, and then to lose in a one-off game to a team that's kind of finished 7th. I mean, it kind of goes to show that, hey, the rest of the whole season kind of been a waste at times. And I mean, for me, I guess, as a fan watching these games, I'm like, hey, I want to win every game, and I'm going to obviously be disappointed if we lose. But also in the back of my mind, I'm like, hey, we'll see what the playoffs. It only matters then how we're going to do then. And I guess if you remove the playoffs, every game in the season then has kind of more weight on it as well. But again, without the relegation, teams haven't got any kind of if they lose, they lose. That's it. They haven't got to worry about the relegation now. I mean, at least in England, kind of teams, if they lose it, obviously they always want to be careful of relegation here and there. But every game has more weight on it. Whereas in the US, you kind of slowly creep up to the playoffs, and then the playoffs are the be all and end all. But why have you got to wait the whole year for that kind of to happen, really?
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you're watching, I don't know, the Colorado Rapids versus Minnesota United in October, right? When at least one of those sides is probably not even in playoff contention, and the other one's kind of just, getting the result to close out the season and move on. It's just not quite as exciting from the fan perspective. I understand that. But like you and I both reiterated, the business part of it can't be ignored. And if we want to sustain long term, it has to be beneficial for the owners just as much as it's beneficial for the fans. And so we'll see how it all pans out. I hope they find a hybrid solution and model that works, because if there was a league that could create that type of excitement, whether it was MLS, USL, or anybody else, I think we would really start to get some eyes, some awareness, and some attention from others who want to invest in the landscape and growing the ecosystem out here. So we'll see how it all pans out. I know we're kind of coming into the final few minutes here, Max. I do want to touch on content creation a little bit, right? The fact that, one, you are a jack of all trades. You are a Twitch streamer extraordinaire, right? With your FIFA content. I know you're kind of moving away from that a little bit and more into the IRL stuff, but nonetheless, man, you're producing a ton. What's really next for you? Not just as a Loyals fan, but not even just a USL fan. But when you think about what the rest of 2023 into 2024 kind of looks like for you and the content you want to put out, is there anything exciting that you, I don't know, may or may not be working on that you kind of want to tease? I mean, what are the next steps for Max Bristow?
So I think really just kind of growing the kind of shows we are doing right now, maybe even kind of venturing more into kind of interviews with kind of other fans from other teams here and there. Maybe even kind of players and kind of even kind of maybe guys in the UK have come out to the US, that kind of thing. There was at one point, probably a few years back, where me and a friend of mine were going to kind of maybe do like international guys come out to the US and kind of that kind of podcast thing. But again, with the IRL kind of soccer content, I've really been enjoying it so far, especially kind of the post-match stuff too. But I think it's really getting involved with it more, getting out there more, again, just producing more content. Like I said, you can never produce enough content. Obviously, I'm sure you know that yourself too. But really just keep doing it. I enjoy doing it. I mean, end of the day, I'm not getting paid to do it. I'm not getting money from it. I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it. And again, if you're not enjoying it, then you should be doing it. But for me, it's been great kind of speaking to people, making new friends here and there, kind of building those relationships. I said this speaking about soccer. And again, from going kind of to being out in the US and kind of struggling to find kind of soccer to watch to now being in a kind of a hotbed of soccer. I think San Diego, honestly, is one of those one of the best places to be for soccer as a whole, and even as a content creator, I think. You've got a bunch of guys here called Two Balls and a Mic, who those guys are kind of slowly growing, and they are trying to get the media credentials for the World Cup. But just kind of seeing their growth too is kind of something to aspire to. But yeah, just kind of, like I said, the opportunities here are great. Again, I guess the opportunities in America as a whole are great too. But soccer now is a great time to get involved with it, to be a part of it. And I think it's only going in one direction.
Yeah, I think so too, man. And look, I think at the end of the day, just kind of close this thing out. I think, the hotbed that you're in city wise for soccer content is only going to get bigger and bigger, right? It's only going to get better from here. I think you have a massive advantage being one of the earliest movers in the space. We'll kind of see how it all pans out for San Diego. When you think about juggling USL and MLS, I'm not really sure what's going to be more. Well, I think we all know kind of what's going to be more widely accepted, right? It'll probably be MLS, but I still think that there's more than enough love and more than enough fandom to go around, especially in SoCal. I think we're talking about another market entirely, maybe, kind of the nail in the coffin, so to speak. But because it's San Diego, because the Hispanic fan base is massive down there, because I think at the end of the day, those fans just can't get enough of soccer, right? Whether it's Tijuana playing down in TJ, or it's the Loyals playing in San Diego, or the MLS team. I think there's going to be more than enough footy for everybody to get their fill. But before we wrap, I do have one final question for you. You do a lot. You do a lot to prop this game up. I think that's all evident from this episode alone. But there have to be some fans that are watching this game, or watching this episode, I should say, and they're tuning in, and maybe they think, hey, you know what? I kind of have this cool idea for a show. I don't know if it's going to take off. There's so many independent content creators now in the market. They're all kind of doing their thing, telling their story. I don't know if I want to do this. Is there any sort of advice that you would give to the aspiring fan, the aspiring content creator who thinks that they have something that the soccer market and the community really needs, but they just haven't put it out there yet?
I think the main thing really is just it's never too late to start. But I mean, the best time to start is now. I think people have great ideas. They may want to kind of put it off a little bit. But again, just through producing content, you'll learn, you'll grow. I mean, definitely for me, I mean, my first few streams or my first few videos here and there, I know they weren't the greatest videos here and there, but again, you'll grow from it. I'm sure you've probably seen growth in yourself throughout kind of all these episodes on the podcast as well. But again, it's never a bad time to start. I mean, you don't need that much kind of, I guess, equipment to start either. I mean, nowadays you've got your phone. I mean, you see all these TikTok creators here and there, kind of with match day vlogs, kind of after games here and there. But really, I mean, if anyone's got any questions, you can always reach out to other people. There's always people out there who are kind of willing to speak about it as well. But I think it's such a kind of a more of a very welcoming community, especially out in the US here too. And I think I said there's always content to go and watch and kind of people to learn from. But yeah, I think it's never a bad time to start. And really, you haven't got to have the best idea straight away. You'll kind of grow into it, and you'll even see yourself grow too. So again, start now. Ask people, ask around. And again, like I said, if you've got a phone, you can create content, you can create videos. And again, are you going to get thousands of views to begin with? No. But it's a case of really seeing that growth, kind of making yourself better every single day. And who knows? I mean, I've seen guys go from kind of 5-10 viewers to now kind of again interviewing kind of all these top footballers. I mean, one of the main guys for me is a guy called Foot FG, or now, I mean, at the very start, not a very big content creator, but now he's kind of producing stuff for Manchester City, going to all these big games too. I mean, it could be
he's hilarious, by the way,
yeah,
too.
It could be you. And I said it's never a bad time to start. I think people maybe get nervous at the beginning and don't know where to start really. But like I said, if you've got a phone, TikTok's the best place for it now, even kind of Twitter, YouTube. But yeah, get started with it.
I love it, man. And I'll echo everything that Max just said. I will say it was so cringe going back to watch my first videos, right? My first podcast episodes. I mean, I to this day, just even like thinking about going back to watch them to see how I can improve. I don't like the idea at all, but I will say that, yeah, I've gotten better. I've gotten more comfortable on camera. I've been able to reach out to more content creators with more confidence now, right, than when I first started kind of the channel and the podcast itself. And even then, when we first launched the podcast, it wasn't really meant to be a storytelling show with other creators. It was kind of just meant to talk footy in general, to grow the game. We didn't know what that really meant. And then as we continue to kind of do episodes and episodes and episodes, we formed what we feel like should be the niche for this show, growing the game by making every story of a fan or a content creator as relevant and relatable to new fans as we possibly can. So, Max, I think you nailed it, man. As far as this episode goes, I think we've conveyed that through and through. I think, you know, for where everything is going in San Diego, you should be very excited. The community of San Diego should be very excited. And yeah, man, I can't thank you enough for being on the show today. I appreciate it. Anyway, for anybody who made it to the end of this episode, I really appreciate you. If you haven't done so already, like the video down below, subscribe to the channel. It's the only way we get the word out and ultimately grow the game stateside, which is our mission here at GOLZtv. So again, my name is Jose Tellez. That's Max Bristow. We'll see you guys in the show next time.
Thanks for having me.